still using the word trabajo for work? Well, that's correct Spanish, but it's not how people usually talk about work in everyday conversation. Hola, ¿qué tal? Soy Pablo de Coffee Break Spanish, and in this video, I'm going to show you some super useful slang words to talk about work like a real native speaker. Vamos! Let's start with one of the first slang words for work you'll hear in Spain. Curro. It sounds cool, right? This one is super common and it means work. Entonces, por ejemplo, si alguien te pregunta, ¿qué tal el curro? Now you know that they're asking how's work or how's work going. So, curro is a noun, but you can also use the verb currar, which means to work. So, you can say things like, mañana no curro. I'm not working tomorrow. Lucky you if that's the case. Or you can also ask someone, ¿de qué curras? To ask them what they do for a living. There are other derived words from curro, such as currante, which essentially means worker. However, currante sometimes also has the connotation of a hardworking person, someone who is very committed to what they do. So if you hear someone say, es muy currante, that means that that person is very hardworking. Muy bien, so far we've seen curro, currar, and currante, but we actually use many other slang words for work in Spain. Por ejemplo, a personal favorite of mine is faena, and I honestly use this one a lot. I think it's maybe more common in the region of Valencia, where I'm from, and essentially faena means work, but it can also mean task. So if you hear someone say something like, tengo mucha faena hoy, it basically means I have a lot of work today or I have so many things to do today. También tenemos la palabra tajo, which, apart from being one of Spain's most important rivers, el Tajo, is also a slang word for work. This one, I would say, is a bit more colloquial than the other. So if someone say, estoy en el Tajo, this probably doesn't mean that they're swimming in the river Tajo, but that they're simply at work. Vale, so we've seen some slang words related to work used in Spain, but what about the rest of the Spanish-speaking world? You may be wondering. Well, let's see a couple of examples from other countries. Por ejemplo, en Mexico, you'll hear the word chamba a lot, which also means work. And similarly, you can also use the verb chambear. You can say things like, prefiere chambear desde casa, which means he or she prefers to work from home. O si estás en Argentina, oirás la palabra laburo. Exactly. In Argentina, you'll hear the slang word laburo, which again means work. But also the verb laburar, which means to work. So as you can see, there are plenty of options for you to choose from, but don't worry, no matter which slang word you prefer to use, you'll be understood across the Spanish-speaking world. Now on to a quick cultural difference that I would really like to share with you. I'm Spanish, and in Spain, people don't usually ask, what do you do for a living, as soon as you meet someone. So I live in Scotland now, and in my experience, every time I meet someone new here, the question, what do you do for work, tends to be one of the first things that they would ask me, and I must say it's always a bit of a surprise to me. It's not that in Spain we don't ask what someone does for a living when we meet them, but it usually comes a wee bit later once you've built some rapport with the person. But don't worry, it's totally fine to ask someone ¿de qué curras? What do you do for a living or for work? At the beginning, if you wish, that's totally fine. And finally, I couldn't finish this video without mentioning curro. So, Curro, apart from meaning work, was also the name of the mascot for the 1992 World Expo that took place in Sevilla. I used to have a stuffed toy of Curro when I was little, and I absolutely loved him. He actually became quite iconic in Spain, and I would say most people still remember him. So when people mention Curro, who knows, they might not just be talking about work, they could be talking about the Expo mascot too. Muy bien, estupendo. Entonces, antes de acabar, hagamos un pequeño resumen, a short summary. So now you know that curro is a slang word for work used in Spain, but it's also the 1992 Expo mascot. You've also learned derived words such as the verb currar, which means to work, and currante, worker or hard worker, depending on the context. You know that in Mexico, people use chamba for work or the verb chambear to say to work. And in Argentina, you'll hear laburo, work, or the verb laburar, to work. And finally, you picked up a cultural difference about asking people what they do for a living when you meet them. Bueno, pues eso es todo. Muchas gracias. And if you enjoyed learning some real Spanish slang today, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to our channel to keep on learning with Coffee Break Spanish. Hasta la próxima y happy coffee breaking. Adiós.